Welcome to Cranfield, the UK's only postgraduate university specialising in technology and management. You heard it here first. My name is Toby Thompson. Thank you for joining us in what I'm sure is a busy day. This is going to be your best Zoom meeting of the day. I guarantee that. Thank you again. This is going to be an interactive session. We do want your questions, your challenges, your observations pretty much at any time throughout this session that we're going to be together for around about an hour. So please, at any time, please type into the Zoom text chat. I'm sure you know how to do that now. And we will do our best. I will do my best to answer, or either to answer or to direct that question that you have to the panel. I'm going to quickly introduce the panel before we come into the details. I'm joined on the sofa in the studio here today by Rosina Watson, Dr. Rosina Watson, I should say. So Rosina, thank you very much indeed for taking time out of your day to join us. And Rosina is the course director for the program that we think you're interested in. So stick around, Rosina, and we'll find out more. We're also joined online by two individuals, two students who are on the current cohort. On the left, you can see Beth. Give us a wave. Great to have you with us. And then Paul, live from the Wirral in UK. Thank you for waving too. So we're going to find out more from real students, what it's really like to be on this program. We're also joined for more information from the apprenticeship route that some of you may be interested in by Lauren Mason. And Lauren is joining us in the studio, and Lauren can give us a lot more information around the details of the apprenticeship route. Lauren, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for waving there. You look lovely there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I'm going to come back, Rosina, if I may, to why we're here today, talk about the MSc in sustainability. But before we do that, tell us about you. How did you make it to Cranfield? What's your background?
My undergrad degree many decades ago was in philosophy, politics and economics, so nothing to do with what I do now, but I made my way to Cranfield via 15 years primarily in retail. So I worked for a long time at Home Retail Group, which was made up of Argos and Homebase. I did a number of different roles there, from finance to commercial to strategy, but almost serendipitously was offered the role as their first head of corporate sustainability back in 2009. Did that role for 3 years and then didn't want to do anything else. So I really wanted to promote this idea of thinking about business in terms of its contribution to society and the environment, not just making a profit. So I ended up leaving after finishing that role and coming to Cranfield to do a PhD and then to launch this course. I'm hugely passionate about this course. It's what I've always wanted to do since I came to Cranfield, because I think it's equipping us as future leaders with the skills, knowledge, behaviours that we need to do what's a very challenging task of leading the sustainability strategy or contributing to the delivery of a sustainability strategy in an organisation. So I'm really pleased that you're interested in this course and looking forward to exploring with you a bit more about what it entails.
Brilliant, thank you very much indeed. And if you're watching the recording, feel free to carry on that conversation. You'll see some things scrolling across the screen in terms of contact details. So keep that conversation going. We're very keen to carry on talking to you, for sure. So Rosina, why did you start the course now, of all times?
So as soon as I came to Cranfield, I realised what a wealth of expertise there was there across the university in terms of the complex, multifaceted issue that we call sustainability. So I come from the School of Management, which is a business school, and we teach about the strategic and leadership side of sustainability. But our sister school, the School of Water, Energy, Environment, the academics there focusing on technology, things like carbon capture and storage, how to measure, how to sense environmental impacts. So across the university, we had this huge strength, not just in the technical and scientific aspects that we needed to address sustainability challenges, but also the leadership and management sides. So I was really keen to get everybody together from across the university to contribute to this course, so that you as individuals can draw on all those different disciplines, all those different backgrounds, to really set yourself up, to equip yourself to be knowledgeable and effective in your sustainability roles or your future sustainability roles if you're doing this course to transition to a more sustainability role.
So before we dive into the details with some slides, tell us more about the audience that you're expecting live now and also watching the recording. Who are you thinking?
So hopefully some of you are here because you as an individual want to come onto this course. Maybe some of you are here because you are representing your employers and you can send people on courses. So maybe you're in the learning and development team, or you're heading up your apprenticeship schemes. So either way, really glad that you've joined us, and I hope this will be a really useful hour to learn more about the course. And really exciting to have some current students on the course, because they will obviously answer your questions totally honestly and no holds barred in terms of what it's really like to be on this programme. So big thanks to Beth and Paul for joining us.
We count. That's my favourite part of these sessions, talking to real students. So we mentioned the dreaded word slides there. I know you've got some slides for us. You're going to give us what, an introduction to the course, some idea of structure?
So just to say, there is a lot of information already available on the website. So the idea of this is just to give you an overview and hopefully steer you in the right direction to find out more online. So I'm just going to start off with summarising what you get if you finish this course, which hopefully everyone who comes on it will finish it successfully. So it's an integrated degree, which means that if you are coming on the apprenticeship route, you not only get an MSc in sustainability, you also become qualified as a sustainability business specialist at level 7, which means master's level. If you come on the course on the traditional MSc route, you get that MSc in sustainability, but not the apprenticeship part. But anybody who joins, regardless of the route, automatically will also become accredited by the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, most commonly known as IEMA. So IEMA have pre-accredited this course, so by completing the course you will get that accreditation from them as well. Hopefully you'll also come out with a network of peers. So I think I'm right in saying the current cohort are finding, that experience of working with studying with like-minded individuals with so much knowledge and experience to share in this field is really, really valuable. And as more students, more cohorts join this course, we'll obviously have a growing network of alumni for you to all benefit from. And then last thing, a bit cheesy, but is really important, lasting memories. We are trying to create a learning experience that is full of kind of challenging moments, but also uplifting moments. This can be a role that can be quite difficult at times. Sometimes you feel like you're fighting against resistance, against barriers. So having a supportive group around you, I think, is really vital. So here we go. We have a picture of our first cohort, the pioneer cohort of the MSc Sustainability, and I've just listed here because I'm often asked what sort of people come on the course. So you can see there in the job descriptions there are people who have already got sustainability in their job title, others who have a role that touches on sustainability and other aspects. So you can see there we've got a head of investor relations and sustainability. But we also have people on the cohort whose roles are not currently fully focused on sustainability, but they're equipping themselves to transition into roles that are more sustainability oriented. In terms of how the course is structured, it's a 2.5-year course, and 2 of those years are dedicated to taught modules. So the course is comprised of 14 taught modules, which are spread over that first 2 years. So the picture that's on the screen now is the modules in year 1. So we start with a module that's very much about you, about personal leadership, move towards thinking about what is sustainability, what does that mean in an organisation, how do you measure it, how do you make sure you're performing against your targets, and then moving into this concept of risk perception and communication. Year 2 goes much more into solution mode, so we have a module on environmental innovation, a module focusing on supply chains, circular and sustainable supply chains, and circular innovation. And then our strategic foresight module is helping to equip us to really think about what the next decades bring and how we can organise ourselves as organisations to respond effectively to those. And then finally, the last 2 modules are very practical, bringing it all together. And one module is more focused on entrepreneurship in the context of sustainability, and the other more on large organisations. So 14 modules spread over 2 years. And then at the end of those 2 years, all students will participate in their own individual piece of research. So it's an opportunity to spend 3 months really focusing on an important topic for your organisation, to research that and to come up with evidence-based informed recommendations. And as I say, at the end, you get your IEMA accreditation. So all those taught modules are delivered online. So they're delivered from the studio here. So we have your lecturers and your guest speakers will be delivering from the studio here, but you'll be there in real time for 20 hours for each module. So although the modules are delivered online, it's very much an interactive experience. As you can see here, hopefully on the graph, it's a mixture of live online delivery for those 2.5 days, and then in between those taught sessions, self-paced learning. So that might be pre-work that prepares you for the online delivery. It might be consolidation and reflection work after a day of teaching. And then that all comes together in a piece of assessment that you'll have to complete for that module. But that's not it. We also have designed in 3 face-to-face residentials here at the Cranfield campus. So one at the beginning of your first year, so your course will kick off with 3 days residential, one at the beginning of your second year and one at the beginning of your third year. And we found this with the first cohort being really effective in building those relationships, those bonds in a face-to-face environment, complete with food and beverages and laughter to sort of tide you through that online teaching period to the next year. And the focus obviously changes during the course of each residential. So the first one's about induction, meeting your peers. We also play an immersive Sustainable Futures game. The second year is more about ideas, innovation, inspiring you to think about the areas of sustainability that you really want to tackle and zero in on in your organisation. And then the third is getting you ready for that thesis project that you'll complete at the end of the course. So just to share sort of practical details with you, the next cohort to run will be the September 2022 cohort, so not far away now. And you've got some information there about when the deadlines are to apply there. So the key thing is applications need to be in by the 26th of July to join that cohort. And then we also will be running another cohort in March 2023, which starts on the 28th of Feb, and specific dates on deadlines of that will be released in due course.
Brilliant. Rosina, thank you so much. I'm keen to try some of that thinking with our 2 students, Beth and Paul, in a second. But before I do that, please keep those questions coming. Bridget Dix, it's great to have you on the text chat, and Rosina Borelli, thank you. So if you see your question being answered by either a Bridget Dix or Rosina Borelli, then they're our colleagues and friends on the call. I'm going to go, Paul, if I may, to you first, just to ask you a little bit more about yourself and the route that you've taken to come onto this course. It's great to see you there. Paul, I should say, is the Global Head of Sustainability at Princes. Paul, tell us a bit about yourself first of all.
Sure. Hi, thanks everyone. So I'm Paul Williams. I've been in the world of work for 15 years now, and about half of that time in sustainability roles. I think for me, in terms of choosing this course, it was all about my roles expanded through a number of internal promotions. I was really keen to supplement the sort of on-the-job learning with the latest thought leadership and academic rigour. So I think for me this, was a key opportunity within the course to try and build upon those, but also to press pause on the day-to-day silo mentality that we have within our own organisations and operations to say, well, what can I learn from the broader industry and sector, and also really importantly from that network of like-minded professionals.
I love that point you make there, Paul, about pressing pause. When do we get a chance to do that? We seldom get a chance to do that. What did you find appealing about the apprenticeship route? Because you've taken the apprenticeship route. Have I understood that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so I saw it advertised originally in the Food and Drink Federation, of which Princes is a member. When was that? Back in September last year. And again, the ability to undertake a master's using the Apprenticeship Levy funding was really appealing. Again, for me, it just facilitated those easier conversations within my organisation to say that access to the levy funding, which I know many organisations deem as a sort of use it or lose it pot of investment for training and development, is really key. So to be able to access that levy funding, have those easier discussions internally with my organisation, but then also take part in an organisation's course that's really innovative. So leading academics and thought leaders around sustainability topics is really key. And I think that was really key for me in terms of how can I put the theory then back into practice. So the apprenticeship route is really about measuring and understanding how people on the course and making sure that they're applying every single piece of knowledge, skills or behaviour day to day in their own operations as best they can.
But Paul, you said that you've been in work for 15 years and here we are back writing dissertations and are in class. I think some people online may be thinking, is that really for me? How did you square that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say it was a bit scary at first, having been out of the sort of academic world for a number of years. I don't necessarily think you need to have an academic background to be able to apply yourself, and also recognise the ability to want to learn, to improve. I think that many people in the industry, as I say, operate in sort of this silo mentality and think that in isolation we've got to solve all of these really big, challenging problems. And I think actually when you come together and meet individuals and like-minded professionals from lots of different sectors and industries, we're all really tackling the same problems, have the same challenges, whether that's in terms of limited resources in sustainability teams, right through to how can we as an individual play a part to improve things. So I think that was really key. The academic side, does take a bit of time to get back into the sort of routine and referencing, and instead of the sort of operational business reports that we might produce without any references, bibliographies, again, it's just making sure that you can tie that into making sure that your arguments, your points really come back down to that academic rigour, which is really key.
Paul, stick around, 10 more questions for you, not least of which are in the text chat, but I've got some questions about what Rosina was saying there. Beth, I want to come to you if I could to find out a little bit more. Beth Stagg, a strategy consultant, great to see you, great to have you join us on this session. You're a non-apprenticeship student, as I understand it. Tell us more about your background and how you came to this course.
Absolutely, thanks Toby, and hi everyone. So my background is in marketing. I spent the last about 15 years working with global agencies and started out in strategy, then moved into agency leadership, and I now work as an independent consultant. For me though, the Masters has really been about helping me transition my career towards sustainability. I became much more aware of the climate emergency, the challenges facing us and the role of business within that, and I felt that I really wanted to move in that direction. And in doing so, I wanted to make sure that I had a real rigorous background, a foundation of understanding to draw from. And I also wanted to build my network in the sustainability field. And so that's why I applied for the course.
Wow, Paul talked there about it's not always easy coming back into academia. How did you find that?
I mean, it's definitely been a change in terms of coming back into it, and a lot of things have changed in terms of when I was at university the first time, my first degree, but actually I think because the topic is so interesting, the course has been really well structured, so I found it quite easy to get into a new routine with it. And I think actually as things progress on, as we get into the ebb and flow of it, you start finding the bits that really work for you. I think one thing that's been really helpful is working out time management and how to actually prioritise time around work and the course, and also life commitments outside of it.
And you, Beth, have done the non-apprenticeship route. You didn't think about the apprenticeship, it just wasn't applicable to you?
So the apprenticeship route wouldn't be applicable to me because I work for myself and my own business. But one of the things that I wanted to do with going down the self-funded route was I wanted to really make sure that I'd be able to apply the learnings in my work. And so before I applied, I spoke to both Rosina and Kanisha about this, trying to understand about whether or not I would be able to apply it to what I do. When it comes to the assignments, would I be able to demonstrate that I was actually applying it in my work? And it's been really positive actually, because I found a lot of opportunities that are really relevant to the work I'm doing with my clients now, but also to where I hope to take my career in the future. So it's actually been much easier than I expected it to be. And when it comes to the course, as a non-apprentice student, we're not really treated any differently. We obviously don't have to do the same amount of evidence gathering around the key skills and behaviours, but when it comes to everything else, we're pretty much all treated the same, and we're all together as one cohort on the course.
Paul, I'm going to come back to you if I may. You've heard Beth talk about demonstration there. I mean, you're already in the role, right? The sustainability role, global head of sustainability, but do you need a sustainability background to join this course?
No, I don't think so, Toby. I mean, clearly this, hopefully people that have joined the webinar that are interested, they're appealed by the opportunity to help and improve sustainability as an individual within their society, community, or within their organisations. So I think that passion is probably the really important thing. I think the only thing I would say to that is, as an apprenticeship, if you go through the apprentice route, you do need to be able to demonstrate those behaviours, knowledge and skills are being applied. So again, just that thought process and making sure that you do have the ability to demonstrate evidence-based improvements.
We're going to come back to Lauren in a minute to find out a bit more about that. But if I can come back to you, Beth, Paul mentioned the network. And this thing is an important part of this learning. You learn clearly, obviously, from the likes of Rosina and all the other professors on the course, but you learn from each other. Have I got that right?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think one of the things I've probably been most surprised about with the course, and one of the biggest positives from the course, has been actually how we've all connected as a group. So, you know, there's such a breadth of people who are on the course, different levels of experience in their careers, different industries, but we all come together, and I think the Spring School was fantastic in helping us connect and get to know one another. And they're both in terms of supporting us in our career. You know, if somebody has a question, they'll share it on the chat, and everybody else will come in and share their thoughts around it. But also the group's very supportive in terms of, you know, when we're coming up to assignment deadlines, or if somebody wants to check something within the group, we're all there for each other.
And Paul, if I can come back to you, tell us more about the support that you need from your organisation. What sort of conversations, and when should you have those conversations? What are they about? What support do you need?
Well, I think clearly, you know, through the apprenticeship route, you need to be able to obtain 20% off the job training, as it's called. So essentially, that's one of your 5 working days typically. So you need your organisation to support that. And for me, that's not just the approval to say, yep, right, every Friday off for self-funding, you know, self-studying or attending on the lectures. It's really also the recognition that this is a master's level course. There's also the support that's needed there in terms of making sure it's the right time for you as an individual, it's the right course. And ultimately, you have to work with your sponsor, your line manager, your HR team, learning and development, to make sure that they are supporting you in every way possible. I think in terms of how a business can support, or how you can get support from your businesses, it's really about recognising that you do need to start those discussions early on. So again, making sure that you can talk about the business benefits as well as the individual benefits to you. All I would advise to potential candidates is make sure that you leverage some of the modules to say this is the benefit to the organisation. So it's not just about you developing your career. There are a number of potential benefits to the organisation. So I think, you know, they can include things like the work assignment. And again, for me, I use that to say to my organisation, instead of paying for an external consultant, this is an internal piece of work undertaken in-house by a sustainability professional. That has huge amounts of benefits to the organisation as well. I think as well, you also need to be really clear that once you've started the course, you know, work with your line manager, work with your sponsor to make sure that you are demonstrating the improvements and the outcomes that are driven directly from that course as well is really helpful.
So you're making sorry, I interrupted you there, but you're making a business case by the sound of it to your organisation, your own organisation.
Yeah, I think you need to, you know, this is a huge investment from you as an individual, but it is an investment from your companies. And I think we all probably recognise that we tend to operate in small teams, particularly in the sustainability world that I come from. There's not huge amounts of resource and ability to tap into that. So if we are asking for additional time off the job training, supporting for learning and self-development, that clearly does need your business's support. But I think if the business is really willing and able to recognise the business benefits to the organisation, to hopefully leapfrog them further in terms of sustainability, but also to invest and train in-house expertise, then that can really be quite powerful.
Paul, thank you. Stick around again. Beth, if I can come to you, because Paul's talking about super pragmatic, super practical stuff there. Beth, if you're not in a sustainability role, which I've understood you're not, how do you do the practical assignments on the course?
So I think, like I say, that was one of the things that I wanted to understand how I would apply it beforehand, but it has actually panned out as expected, and as the course directors explained to me, all of our topics are actually set, the questions for our assignments are set in a very broad way, which then gives you the opportunity to think about how are you going to apply it, what topic you would like to focus on, and they're broad enough for you to have that flexibility to choose the right direction. And you also get a lot of support when you're choosing your topic. You can then work with the team to actually understand, is this the right route to go down, and be guided to make sure that it's going to be the most useful piece of work you can do. Brilliant.
Beth and Paul, thank you again. Stay with us because there's a ton of questions coming in on the text chat. If you've not had a chance to ask a question yet, please type that question in. And if you're watching the recordings, please get in touch with Cranfield University, and we want to hear more from you. I'm going to pass over to Lauren Mason now, if I may, to find out a little bit more about the apprenticeship route and give us a bit more details. Lauren, if you can give us a bit more details, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So Rosina's gone through kind of the course content and the course structure, and Paul's done a great job in covering quite a lot of actually the apprenticeship contents. And I've just got a few slides to go through and kind of talk you through what an apprenticeship is at Cranfield. So Cranfield University has over 1,200 apprentices on level 7 postgraduate apprenticeship programmes, and it's on a range of courses, and they're all supported by apprenticeship course tutors, the academic team, and there is a lot of support across all of our different programmes. We've got 400, nearly actually 500 now, that have gone through their endpoint assessment gateway, and we have a 100% pass rate with more than 99% passing on their first attempt. So that's a credit from the hard work of the apprentices, but also the course teams and also the supports of the employer as well. So I said eligible organisations in England will be able to use their Apprenticeship Levy for this Sustainability MSc Apprenticeship. Next slide, please. I said to be eligible for an apprenticeship, there are specific criteria that you are required to meet. As I said, you need to have an identified training need in regards to your current or future role. So that's meeting the knowledge, skills and behaviours and have that availability in your role or in a role for the future. So you would need to have UK residency or meet the appropriate visa conditions. So that's whether you lived in the UK for 3 years or more. And what we do also ask on that visa is that you do have 6 months or more prior to the end of the apprenticeship to make sure that if you need to take a pause in learning for any reason or resit a module, you do have time to do that while still within that working visa, and to make sure that we can provide the support that we need for you and you can take a break if needed. So I said another requirement is that you need to spend 50% of your working time in England. So that's making sure that if you live on the borders or you live anywhere near the borders and you're working across different, you need to make sure that 50% of your working time is in England for the apprenticeship. And you also need to be able to commit to the whole duration of the apprenticeship. So that's the 2 years of study and also then the endpoint assessment as well. And it's making sure that your employer is also supportive and engaging in that as well. As Paul said, Paul made a very good point in that it is very important that your employer is supportive of you, not just going forward to the apprenticeship, but also supporting you through it and making sure you've got the opportunities to develop and also have opportunities to work on these projects and bring them in. As an apprenticeship is a great benefit, not just to the workers and to employees that you are upskilling, but also bringing that knowledge back into the programme and bringing it back into the organisation to help you develop and help you progress as well. Next slide, please. As I said, employee support is crucial, and we do ask that with all apprenticeships that the workplace does provide a workplace mentor, and that is to make sure the apprentice is given the time they need with the 20% off the job time, but also the time they need in the workplace to work on those knowledge, skills and behaviours and apply them in the workplace as well. As I said, it's all based on the knowledge, skills and behaviours of the Sustainability Apprenticeship and the Sustainability Standard, and it's making sure that these can be applied in your working day while you're studying and in every aspect that you can do. And also it's making sure that you've got evidence, that you can evidence your work and evidence the progress against those knowledge, skills and behaviours to progress towards that endpoint assessment. So as part of the apprenticeship and to apply, what we do is we ask all apprentices to undergo what we call an initial assessment. So the initial assessment is before you've started and during the application process, we ask you to kind of set a baseline of those knowledge, skills and behaviours. So you'd go through and kind of rank yourself against the sustainability standard and say, we wouldn't expect you to be high at this point because that's the point of the apprenticeship. The apprenticeship will upskill you to reach the higher level of those standards and the higher level of the knowledge, skills and behaviours as you progress on and through. The idea would be to be on if you were high, it probably wouldn't be for yourself because you don't need that upskilling because you're already there, which is great. And then what we would do is go back and look at the initial assessment and the knowledge, skills and the knowledge, skills and behaviours baseline that you've set, and we'd look at that through your progress reviews, which are kind of every 12 weeks approximately with your apprenticeship tutor and with your employer, and see how you're progressing, how these knowledge and skills and behaviours are developing and what potentially needs to be changed or exposure given in other areas to help you progress on these behaviours. And as Paul also mentioned as well, you are entitled as an apprentice to have 20% off the job time. So that's 20% of your working hours a week should be spent on the apprenticeship. So that will be attending here at Cranfield, it will be the online lectures, it will be on your coursework, it will be team studying or group projects, it would also be working on internal projects at work. Anything that you can use to apply towards knowledge, skills and behaviours can count towards that 20% off the job time. Next slide please. And Rosina also covered this previously, but I said the first step for any apprenticeship is that comes from employer support. So to make sure that the employer is supportive and on board with this apprenticeship, we ask them to first submit an expression of interest. The expression of interest is from the employer to say, yes, I'm interested, I'm willing to support my apprentice during this programme and I would be interested in learning more. So we ask that all expressions of interest for the September intake are to be made by the 12th of July. So the link you can find is on our website. And then once we've received the expression of interest, we would send the employer an application link for the apprentice to complete, and we do ask they are received by the 26th of July. So the deadlines are there, and the expression of interest is just for the apprenticeship route. So the non-apprentices, you can just go straight forward to the application link and the application process. But for any apprentices, we do ask that the employer submits the expression of interest first. Next slide, please. And I said, any questions or if you have anything you would like to more know about apprenticeships, whether you're an employer who wants to know more about whether you're using your levy fund to fund it, or if you have any questions in regards to levy or anything at all, please do contact us on the email address provided and one of us would be more than happy to help.
Lauren, thank you very much indeed. Rosina, what are you thinking?
I just wanted to add a point that I should have probably put in my presentation at the beginning. Obviously, we've talked about the fact that on the apprenticeship route, you can use apprenticeship levy funding. Just wanted to clarify, it is on the website, just want to clarify on the call that the full cost of the course is £18,000 and you can use £11,000 apprenticeship levy towards that. That's the maximum that you're allowed to use according to the government's setting of rates for this apprenticeship.
A ton of questions on funding and that on the text chat. If Bridget Dix or Rosina Borelli hasn't answered your question, please keep asking it on the text chat and we'll come around to it. Rachel, for me, has the killer question. What is the expected time commitment per week? Is it small? I'm going to come back to Paul and Beth in a second, but what would you say it was per week?
The expected time, so as Paul was talking about and as Lauren was talking about, if you're on the apprenticeship route, it has to be a minimum of 20% of your contracted hours. So that's 1 day a week. I don't want to speak for the students, but they can hopefully agree with me that realistically it's a little bit more than that. So it's probably a day and a half a week, between a day and a half and 2 days a week, depending on how fast you read, how much of a perfectionist you are, how much detail you go into in your assessments. So we've been advising all our students to block Fridays off if they can. Some of the days it has to be Friday. When you've got live lectures, it has to be Friday. The alternate weeks, it doesn't have to be a Friday, but I think it's easier to establish that rhythm. And then you should be expecting to do at least a half a day around that, whether that's unfortunately in the evenings or at weekends. So there is that extra bit of time outside the minimum 20% off the job.
Beth and Paul, I'm going to come to you. Beth first, just to answer Rachel's questions about expected time commitments per week. Beth, tell us more about that Friday that Rosina just mentioned there. What is it like on the Friday? Is it a bombardment of PowerPoints? Tell us more.
So when I originally applied and we talked about the Friday lectures and 8:30 to 5:30 in the day, it sounds like it's going to be a very full-on day, and it is a full-on day. But actually the sessions are run in a way that makes them really interactive. We have a lot of opportunity for conversation with the lecturers, but also with our cohort during the sessions, breakout groups. So it's full on. You get breaks throughout the day, which is always good to get away from the screen and just have a stretch your legs. By the end of the day, you've taken on a lot more information, but the time goes fast because the sessions are really engaging and interesting. And you know, I think it works well having lectures 1 week and then having the self-directed learning the following week, which gives you a chance to sort of reflect on what you've learned and to think a little bit more about it before you then go into the next week of lectures.
And Paul, how's that for you? How is it working in terms of family and your other commitments outside of work?
Yeah, I pretty much echo the comments that Beth and Rosina have made. So it is definitely a minimum of 20%. I'd say for me, probably a slower reader, maybe 2 days per week of the 7 in total. I think, look, it depends on your time management, your workload flexibility, business support, and also passion for what you're learning. So there'll be some modules that really, you know, trigger a light that goes off and you want to find out huge amounts more additional reading and information about that topic. But likewise, there might be other modules that you think, look, I'm just really trying to get through to make sure that I pass and move on to the next module. So I think, you know, in terms of the family commitment, the business support, that's really key. And I think I would, you know, recommend that you have those open conversations with your organisation, but also the people that are going to help and support. So for myself, I've got 2 young children. Fundamental to me is, you know, my family support for the childcare support is really key, but also my organisation support in terms of that off-the-job training, but also the ability to say, look, I'm going to have to put certain workload on a bit of a pause while there's an assignment due, but then after the assignment, I can give a bit more time to work. I think when reflecting on this conversation and question as well, I thought, contracts that most of us probably sign with our own organisations, which may say something like an 8:30 to 5 finish. And I'm not sure in the 15 years of my career that I've ever sort of stuck to that 9 to 5 mentality. So, there's a bit of flexibility that's needed. And I think there will be peaks and troughs of, module assignment deadlines and work pressures and organisational family commitments. So, yeah, time management's really key.
So what I hear you say there, Paul, is that I'm sure you'll find the time. Is that true?
Yes.
We did try and design the course in a human way, though. So there are quite big gaps in the summer and Christmas and Easter, because I think most of the people who designed the course have got children and other commitments. So at least you get some breaks.
So Beth and Paul have got July and August off, and that's
July
it.
and August, December, yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's quite an important point because it's a lot of work, and Beth and Paul have
yeah.
not said it's an easy thing.
No, it is a lot. It is a lot of work. But as you say, if you've got that, it helps if you've got the passion and the interest. And the other thing is, you do have to take it as a marathon, not a sprint. It is a two-year course. Every module has got its challenges, but I think there's lots of support. So there is a lot of support within the university. So I think Paul mentioned every apprentice is assigned an apprenticeship tutor who will help them all across the whole modules, all the way through to their endpoint assessment. And each of the non-apprenticeship students has a course tutor. So I'm Beth's course tutor, for example, and so we're on hand to kind of help and support when needed. And there's also flexibility and conditions in which you can be granted extensions if there's something in particular going on in your home life or your work life that requires that.
Paul, you talked about proof of progression, and Rachel has a question in the text chat here about how do you prove development and progression? What sort of things are you jotting down? How can you remember everything?
Really good question. I think for me it was almost what are the key insights, implications, recommendations that I can take forward from what I've learned on a specific module or teaching day to apply to my organisation. That might be a specific model that you've come across that you can start to apply. It might be different skills and behaviours that you thought about, again, learning from the cohort. So we've got a really fantastic spread of sectors represented on our cohort. And that means that you can learn from different people about how they've approached maybe a similar challenge, and you can then try and demonstrate an improvement in the way that you've addressed that same problem within your own organisation. There is very much the evidence-based in terms of if you think about the apprenticeship almost like another module or working towards another module, so you need to be able to document evidence-based improvements. You need to be able to log your working hours, for example, which sounds very administrative, and it's not a huge job, but again, it's just demonstrating because of the access to the funding that you are using that funding in the appropriate way. I think as well as the endpoint assignment is going to be really key as a means to demonstrate how you have effectively taken all of the knowledge, the skills, the learning behaviours, and really applied those within your own organisation.
Paul, thank you. There's a question from Bridget here, Rosina, to you, I think. And Beth mentioned it too, so Beth, thank you for prompting us. The structure of the modules. So you talked about 1 week off, Beth talked about 1 week off and 1 week on. Say a lot more detail about the structure, the teaching pattern.
Yeah, so each module is essentially 8 weeks end to end. So if you think about the first week, you have pre-work to do. The second week you have a day's teaching. The third week you don't have teaching, but you have consolidation, reflection activities related to day one, preparation for the next teaching day. Fourth week you have teaching day again, so a full day online live. Following day you're probably working on your assessment, to be honest, and then the week after that you're handing in your assessment.
So the pre-work,
so that's the pattern.
We're talking about reading, watching videos.
Reading, crossword.
Crossword, whoa.
Yeah, so it's basically, and I think some activities as well. So in my module, we were creating a materiality matrix everyone created a materiality matrix for their organisation before they came into the teaching session. So the idea of the pre-work is that you've got a base level of knowledge, you've done some of the preparation so that in the actual session, we can spend the time that we have live together, sort of synchronously, to discuss that pre-work rather than having to spend time reading or reviewing basic information in that really important live teaching day.
Brilliant. Lauren, I'm going to come to you, if I may, about a question that Dorotta's got here, which may have been answered already in the text chat, but it'd be good if you can go over it again, Lauren. For apprenticeship route, can my employer pay in instalments, or is it a one-time payment?
So in regards to the apprenticeship route, the £11,000 that would come from the levy, that is taken through the levy account, so that is through the digital apprenticeship service, and it is paid 3 monthly instalments, but it isn't from your employer directly, it would be from their levy pot. And in regards to the top-up, so the top-up is £7,000, that is paid in 2 instalments through the course, so it wouldn't be split into monthly instalments, there would be 2 instalments through the course, and you'd be advised kind of, I believe it's at the beginning and kind of part way through. Rosina would probably
Beginning of
confirm.
year 1 and beginning of year 2.
Yeah. So it would be the monthly instalments will come through the levy pot, but it isn't from your employer directly, it is from the levy pot. And if you are co-investment, that for example you're a non-levy payer, we would kind of go through the options with you in regards to the co-investment payment if you are not paying into the levy.
Brilliant. Question for you, Rosina, from Joe.
Hi, Joe.
I'd like to know if there's a biodiversity, if biodiversity natural capital is covered in any of the modules.
Yes.
Hey, I knew you'd say
It's
that.
already been covered, hasn't it? So
Oh.
Professor Jim Harris is our resident expert in the School of Water, Energy and Environment on biodiversity and natural capital. So that comes into 2 or 3 modules actually. So that you wouldn't see it as in the title of any of the modules, but it's a strong theme that goes throughout.
So if you've not got a biodiversity background, there's a ton of reading, or you just can pretty much, with the pre-work that you've assigned already, you can pretty much pick it up.
I think it's probably fair to say that amongst the cohort, there are people are always going to find areas that they already know more about and areas that they know less about. So I know, for example, Paul's got a kind of deep background in ethical supply chains and modern slavery. That's so much more on the ethical side of the supply chains. Other people might have much more experience around carbon. Some people might be HR professionals who have got a lot of experience around diversity and inclusion. So I think for everybody, there'll be areas where you're already sort of quite far up the curve in terms of your learning and areas where you have to get up to speed. But that's where learning from each other becomes really important as well, because there's always someone in the cohort who knows more than you on a topic and someone that knows less. And as long as everyone's got that sort of contributing mindset, that giving mindset, which everybody has in terms of sharing knowledge, that works really well.
And Lauren, this may be one for you from Sophie, who's online, and I think, Bridget, you may have answered it, but it's good to have a flush out of that. What's the distinction for levy payers of the 11K and the top-up fee of 7K? What's that top-up fee achieving?
So the top-up fee is obviously to progress the rest of the course fee. Obviously the £11,000 is, the course fee is £18,000, and that would be obviously if you're a self-funded, that's the amount you'd pay. The government has obviously set a price cap on what can be paid out of the levy for this course. The government said is £11,000 of that will be paid out of the levy fund, and then the rest of it would be the top-up fee.
Brilliant. Beth, I've got a question for you, because Rosina mentioned in those slides that she covered a spring school. What was that like for you? What was it? Was it like a week's intensive learning, or what was it?
I mean, the spring school, I think, was a brilliant start to the course. It gave us a chance to get to know everybody, but throughout the 3 days, you know, we did a whole range of different things. We did the Sustainability Futures game, which was really helpful. I think we did that early on, and it brought us all together, got us talking about issues and, you know, sharing experiences. So throughout it, we got a real kind of induction into what we would be doing. We also had some initial lectures from our first module, which is all around our personal leadership for sustainability. And a lot of that was thinking about our leadership styles, our learning styles. And that was really helpful, I think, in getting us to reflect on who we are, how we learn, how we work well with others, and the work that we'll be doing from that will span out over the next few years. But it was great, and it wasn't all about lectures and learning. We had a lot of social time together, getting to know everybody, and yeah, it was a really good couple of days.
Paul, do you have anything to add around that spring school experience?
No, I think Beth's pretty much covered it. I think, yeah, it's just for me taking away the sort of that networking opportunity. So now there's quite a few separate, WhatsApp groups, and again that range of different, I guess, almost experts that we can tap into for advice or practical solutions in terms of, again, some of those challenges that we may not have even been able to reach out to before. That's really useful.
And Paul, the course is supported by, as I understand it, Canvas, which is an online platform. Tell us more about that. How you use it.
So that's, again, sort of an online platform that you can use. So that's where you can get access to your lecture notes, to your recordings, but also where you can upload the evidence. So as an apprentice, That's where you have to upload all of your evidence in terms of those knowledge, skills, behaviours that we've talked about throughout this. So it's really that platform online, and that means that obviously very readily accessible, but also it's there if you need it. So 2.5 years sounds like a long period of time. Hopefully it will fly by. But again, if you're uploading and regularly using Canvas, then you can make sure that you can reflect back in whenever you need to, essentially, to say, how can I measure the performance that I've made when I first started the course versus where I am today. And then obviously through Canvas as well, it's that access to people's contact details if you need it as well.
Paul, thank you. Lauren, I think there's a couple of questions for you. If you can remind us, Lauren, of that email address. I think Dorota's asking for that email address to ask questions regarding the apprenticeship. Just shout that out.
So for apprenticeships, it'd be apprenticeships@cranfield.ac.uk.
Brilliant. Well, we'll put that, there you go. We put it up onto the chat as well. And Lauren, also another question. This is from Joe. I live and work in Scotland. Is there any fund I could apply, as is my understanding that I'm not eligible for levy funding? Is that right? Has Joe understood that?
For if you're not working in England for that 50% at this time, you wouldn't be eligible for the apprenticeship funding. But I do believe there are bursaries and things you could apply for, and have a look on the website, because it would be through the self-funded route, but there are options for bursaries, I believe, that you can apply for potentially as well.
Lauren, thank you.
It's probably worth adding that obviously it's a more difficult conversation with your employer, but we do have students on the course who are self-funded, but they're sponsored by their organisation. So although their organisation hasn't been able to access levy funding for that individual, they've agreed to sponsoring their student. And there are bursaries available up to £3,500. So there's a Changemaker bursary and also a Diversity Champion bursary. So more information online on those.
Beth, I've got to come to you, because I think, Beth, you're one of 8. I think everyone else is an apprenticeship. You're a non-apprenticeship. What's that like? Does that prejudice you in any way?
No, I don't think it really, we're not really seen as any different, I think, on the course. Obviously, as I said, the apprentices have different requirements in terms of evidencing their work. But I think for us as non-apprenticeships, we do have a group, or we have our own WhatsApp group, so we can chat about some of the things specific to us, mainly around specifically thinking about topics and assignments, and also what we're thinking about doing in terms of our work and how it fits with the work that we're doing. But to be honest, I don't really think that there is a big difference, and I think it's actually really interesting hearing from everybody in their different sectors, different industries, different experiences that can all be shared, and also seeing how many businesses are actually investing in this and supporting their employees to go through this course and to really put a focus on sustainability.
And Paul, you said something about you looked around when you were looking at courses, because clearly Cranfield is one of many. What did you find out there in the marketplace that makes Cranfield different? What was it like?
I think for me, almost access to the levy funding was a huge motivator. So again, I think the number of the number of masters in sustainability that can access levy funding is very limited. I think there's only actually 2 in the UK. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for me, right, that was one of the key arguments. And I think in terms of the value for money from an organisation's perspective, is they are effectively, if they are going through the levy funding and able to, paying for a really high quality, thought leadership, academically driven course for what tends to be 18,000 versus say 26,000 or above for other courses at other institutions. So I think in terms of value for money, but also value for the credibility of Cranfield and access to those schools that we've talked about in terms of School of Management, but also to those sort of thought leader courses and access to industry experts and academics is really key. I think you've got to be also careful to make sure that you've got support from your employer. So I'm really lucky that Princes have given me the time and support and investment, and that's really key. But I think there is an opportunity for candidates to make sure that they use the opportunity to sell the business case internally. So yes, it's about a limited number of institutions that can offer this, but also how can that help businesses and organisations as well?
Paul, I was going to ask you about that. You're one-to-one with your manager. They're not thinking you're skiving every Friday. They're fully supportive of what you're doing, or they're just curious?
No, hopefully, well, I'm sure I'm really lucky at Princes, so my boss is really supportive, and I think the organisation recognises the benefits to the organisation, but also to me as an individual, to invest, to develop that in-house resource. So again, rather than having to rely on maybe external, more expensive consultants, if you can build up that understanding in-house, that does add a huge amount of leverage and an opportunity for the organisation. I think also the employer opportunities are the work-based project. So again, that is a piece of a very detailed consultation that is going to be very specific to that organisation, which arguably they would never be able to get that level of depth and insight from an external piece of work. So again, I've used that to my advantage to try and make sure that I get the support on an ongoing basis. But yeah, really lucky to have to do so, and would recommend that to anyone also thinking of doing the course.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Princes. To Paul's point there, how does that work-based project work? Does the student choose? Do you recommend? How does it?
So it's a very much a sort of three-way relationship in terms of the relationship between the employer sponsor, the student themselves, and their academic supervisor, because this piece of work is meeting two objectives. It's the thesis that gets you the master's degree, but it's also the piece of work that gets you the qualified as a sustainability business specialist. It has to be a piece of work that is useful for your organisation. It has to be a piece of work that you feel passionate about as an individual, and it has to be a piece of work that can make some academic contribution. So it's very much a three-way definition of that project. But there is plenty of time to define that, and as I said, that third residential is very much focused on getting ready for that, making sure you've got the right project for you, the right project for your academic lead, the right project for your business.
Brilliant. So you can put your stamp on that project by the sound of it.
Yeah.
There's a very particular question here from Jack, but I think it would be interesting for everyone to hear it. Can you send me the course material and recommended reading before the course starts? I'll have 1 month before starting, as I'm leaving my current job for this apprenticeship with a new employer and wish to get ahead. Is that even doable?
There's kind of a limit to how far in advance we can give it to you because of university procedures, which we've come up against. So you have to be registered for the course to get the full amount of pre-reading, unfortunately.
So Jack,
we can give you some reading. We can give you some reading recommendations, though.
Stay in touch. We want to work with you. So we'll find a way somehow. But as you say, you'd need to be a student first for us to do that. I'm going to go around the room now and start, I think, with Beth, if I may. In terms of recommendations, if you're put yourself in the shoes, Beth, of someone coming on this course or thinking of coming on the course, what would your recommendation be to them?
I think, it echoes what Paul's already said and what we've already talked about in terms of commitment to time. I think we talk a lot about, from an apprentice point of view, making sure you've got that support within your business. But I think if you're coming through a self-funded route, it's really important to really make sure you can invest the time, you can protect the time to fully commit to the course. It's obviously a big investment in terms of financial investment, time and commitment investment. For me, it's definitely been absolutely worth it so far. But I think you just need to be able to protect your time, work with your time management, and really focus on carving out opportunities so that you can really get deep into the detail of the course. I think that's probably the one thing that's been critical. And I think when it comes to preparing for the course, when it comes to reading and learning, I think there's so much out there. I think the more you can immerse into it before you start, the more it will help you once you actually get on the course.
Beth, thank you. Paul, can I come to you? You mentioned open-mindedness earlier on. What recommendations would you give to people thinking of coming?
I think, just have that thought in your mind. Is this the right course at the right time with the right institution? Hopefully all those three are absolutely the right thing for you and your employer. But it is a significant investment. This isn't just attending a Zoom call every Friday and doing a bit of reading on the bus to work. There is a huge amount of commitment behind this as a master's academic course. So be really clear with yourself and have those discussions early on. I would say develop the business case, because it's not just for you, and it probably feels a bit overwhelming to start to think about the tangible improvements or changes that you can make to your organisation. But I think if you can start that discussion, go through the expression of interest process. There's no obligation at that point, I understand, so you can have those discussions as you're going through the process, but make sure that you don't miss those key deadlines as well.
Paul, thank you. And Lauren, can I come to you in terms of recommendations? You had some deadlines on those slides there.
Yeah, I said I would apply early. The earlier you apply, any questions you have, we can answer. And the biggest recommendation is just, as Paul said, get your employer on board. Get your employer to understand the benefits and know the benefits that you're going to bring to the organisation as well as you study this course.
Brilliant, Lauren. Thank you very much indeed. Rosina, you must have a ton of recommendations for people thinking of coming on this course.
No, I'll keep it short though. Don't be nervous about coming back to study, even if you haven't studied for a long, long time. So I came to do my PhD about 20 years after I'd done my undergraduate. So it is a bit overwhelming to start with. It is a big change, but the world needs it, to be honest. That's my other recommendation is, it has to be the right time for you, obviously, as an individual. You have to get the support of your organisation. But if those things are aligned, just grasp the opportunity, because we know this is the decade of action. This is the time that we have to drive change. It's basically, you know, this 8 years is really critical. And the good thing about an apprenticeship is it's not like you have to wait to the end of your course before you can actually make things happen in the real world. As you go along, everything you learn, you can have a go at saying, okay, how can that make my organisation perform better? How can that make me perform better in my role so I can be driving that change for good? We don't have long to take that action. And on a more practical note, last cohort was oversubscribed. So as well as applying early to meet the deadlines, it would be a real shame to not be able to get in because you've missed the cut-off of the numbers. So if you know you want to do this, then apply early.
And you're looking at a September intake and a March intake for the foreseeable future?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
no difference between the two?
No, just the timing.
Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant. Dean has a question. What were the dates to apply for the spring cohort again, please?
For the spring one?
Yeah, the spring cohort.
I didn't show the deadlines.
Oh,
We've
right,
got
okay.
we haven't got the firm deadlines of that, but it will be around January time.
So Dean, look out for
Yeah, it'll be
around.
quite soon after Christmas.
Dean, we want to work with you, so yeah, keep looking at the website. We have no more questions at the moment. Hopefully your questions have been answered in the text chat or in this conversation. Just leaves me to thank everyone that's been involved today, not least of which are Paul and Beth, current students. There you go. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for telling us the truth about this course. And Lauren, thank you very much indeed for giving us the detail around the apprenticeship route. It's really appreciated. Rosina, thank you very much indeed. Great working with you, and we want more cohorts. We want more students, I think it's fair to say. Studio producer today was Marco Gomez. The executive producer was David Metcalf. My name is Toby Thompson. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Thanks, Toby.